Okay, hi, so I told you we'd be back. So we've still got the two windows open that we just rendered. Now, I'm going to close off the clone here. Actually, no, I'll just minimize it. And here's the one we're working with. Now, what I'm going to do is go over to my renderer tab, and we're going to have a walkthrough of everything in here that really we need to know about. So, we can enable the built-in virtual frame buffer. I'm not going to be using this at the moment. Global switches, we can enable displacement, the lighting, default lights, shadows. And we can choose not to render the final image, only compute the global illumination maps, which is more useful than you think if you're actually using it to calculate the global illumination. Anti-aliasing then. Now, at the moment we've got fixed rate, one subdivision, so when we render, you'll see it's got jaggies, unless you're watching this in a low compression, in which case everything's got jaggies, but you can see around the edges here particularly. See? Now, if I increase the subdivisions and hit render, you can see already it's smoothing it down. Hit it again. So now if I pull out, we've got a much smoother looking image already. I can click rand. Oops, hang on. But it's back to 1 again. You know, I still haven't found out what rand is. I must read that manual someday. Anyway, what I tend to use though is either a simple 2 level, where you've got a basic subdivision level of say about 2 and find subdivisions of 5, and that'll give you a really nice looking little render, like so. See, clean the edges off. Or adaptive subdivision with a minimum rate of -1 and a maximum rate of 3, which is a much faster render. It's faster than the simple 2 level, because it's calculating the rate of subdivision based on all sorts of funky things that I can't possibly attempt to understand. Anyway, I'm going to stick this on adaptive. Now, next thing I'm going to put on is the global illumination, and just click on. I'm not going to mess around with any of the settings here for the moment, and I'm just going to hit F9. Wait for the pre-passes to go, and look how realistic that looks. Have you noticed a difference? No. There's a reason for that. We don't have anything actually emitting any rays in vray. We don't have a light in here. So if we put in a light, just stick in a simple omni, raise that up like so, hit F9, now we can start the rendering process again. Still doesn't look particularly exciting though, does it? And that's because our skylight and our background is black, so there's no light coming off it. If we change that, and now do it again, you start to see subtle differences. We've got shadows gathering under the teapot, for example. So, close this down and press F10 again. Now, if you want to be able to see what's going on in the image, click Show Calc Phase. So I'm going to click that and press F9, and now you're able to see where the light's coming from, which edges it's hitting. And we don't even need this light turned on, as long as we've got a background that isn't black, in order to be able to render now. So I can turn that off, hit F9 now, and we'll still have our illuminated scene. But now it's gathering light, photons from here, and it's also gathering lighting information from the surrounding grey here. That's why the entire image looks like that. So, what do we do with this? Well, the lighting at the minute is very basic, obviously. If I was to go to my environment, I could kind of kick it up a bit. Hit F9. It's useful having pre-pass on, it gives you a good idea of a preview. And you can see now that we've got our what we call a standard clay animation. What we can do is bung in HDRI now. So I'm going to go to my environment map slot, click it, click bitmap. I'm going to go to my projects, HDRI, because this is where I keep my HDRI images. And I'm going to choose a Radiance image file. And I'm just going to pick this one here that I got off CG Talk. Click OK. It's very dark. Now, if I render now, you're going to get a very strange effect, because it's just mapped as a background image. See what I mean? You can't actually see anything. What we need to do now is map this HDRI image so that you have the ability to be able to project light value onto this from the various different directions, just like you would in real life, I suppose. So, what I'm going to do is open my material editor by pressing M, and I'm going to pick my first slot that's free, and just click and drag. Click Instance, and there you can see it better. I double click. There we go. Now, first thing we're going to do then is make it a spherical environment, because it ain't no good to us in any other way. Also, it's too dark, we're not getting enough lighting information, and we need the lighting information from this HDR to light it. So if I go to Output, I'm going to change the RGB level to about 3.15. That'll really brighten the image up a lot. Now if I render, you can see the difference already. Wait a second. There we go. So you can see all the different lighting coming off the image. We've still got our clay render, obviously, because we're using basic materials, but it's made a big difference to us. Okay, now the problem is we're using this environment map and we don't want to. You'll understand why if I do this, it starts to look unprofessional as soon as we come in from different angles. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people do like having their HDR image sitting in the background, but if we only want to affect this small part here, then the last thing we want to do is have our low quality HDR image sitting in the background. I mean, that is the same kind of kudos levels as using a checker pattern on your models. So, close it down. And what I'm going to do now is turn off Use Map. Now, if I render now, of course, we're back to our old clay model with no decent lighting information at all. So, zoom out. Press F4 if you want to know where the items are when you've got your light turned off. And I'm going to press F10. Now, if I go over to my renderer and come down to Environment here and open it, we've got two overrides. We've got the override for the skylight, and we've got the override for reflections. Now, if we've got the environment turned off, then we're going to want to override both of these if you want to get interesting reflections. And just click and drag and instance to both. There we go. So now, if I do it again, we've got our lighting information back. We can change our background to any colour. We can do a Dorling Kindersley, in fact, which I'll do, I think, just as soon as this is rendered. So rendering, environment, and change this to white. There we go. So now we've got our standard Dorling Kindersley render, and I'm going to show you in the next part how we start playing about with materials to get some interesting effects with our four objects.